Okay, ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, my name is Udur Jagero and this is Dialogues with Jagero. Today we are going to be talking about the debt situation in this country and the hunger situation in this country. Everybody says that everything is expensive, but we only have a government that has been here for the last, is it 6 months?
Yeah,
Around 6 months. And, there were things that we were promised during electioneering period. And I think I have fallen prey to one of them, two of them, three of them, and a couple of them. One of the things that I keep wondering to myself is that, do we really have a government that is saying, okay, look, let's fix this situation and let's make it better? The other question that I've always wondered is that if you look at the television, if you read the papers and basically online, the idea is that Kenya is in a very, very bad shape. As somebody who is an artist or somebody who is in the arts, I don't understand the numbers. I see trillions, I see billions, I see all these, numbers thrown at us, but we don't understand it. The IMF is there, the World Bank is there giving us. So today we have a guest, Mr. Josphat, who is going to be breaking this down for us. And Karibu, Mr. Josphat, how are you doing?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to tell the people that are watching this who Josphat Machagua is. So, Josphat is a policy analyst specializing in fintech, debt, investment, trade, global financial flows, innovation, and green energy. So, he is currently working as a consultant with the African Development Bank, AFDB. He has previously worked as a consultant and policy analyst for the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis, KIPRA, Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, KIEP, UN Women, United Nations University World Institute for Development Economics, an Uncovered Fund Incorporation, Mr. Gachagua, Mr. Machagua, it sounds very much the same. Mr. Machagua also has co-authored several publications under the name, with the most notable ones at the UN. There is a link there that we'll put below. So, Mr. Machagua, can I call you Machagua or Josphat?
Either is fun.
Okay, Machagua is easy. I hope I would not call you.
The other one.
Yeah, we were talking before, the idea of debt and how the situation is in this country. We see a lot of debt going on, but we don't understand the magnitude of it. When you talk to an ordinary Kenyan about billions, trillions, we have not handled millions of money. So when you talk about trillions, we don't understand that world. So in a layman's language, how bad is this country? That is perhaps the question that we can start with. How bad is it?
Sure. Thank you very much for hosting me. And we are not in a good situation.
Yeah.
Actually, the situation is very dire. Let me give you the figures. I'll try to elaborate in a very simple way.
Yeah.
And in Kenya, the national government normally gets revenue from mainly two sources. You can say three. The first one is tax. That is the tax we give to the government. The second one is debt. That is local debt. And we get local debt from majorly two sources. That is treasury bills and treasury bonds. In simple terms, treasury bills and treasury bonds, they are avenues which you as an ordinary person or a company can lend to the government, and then you get interest on that money, and then you're paid after a certain period of time. And we also get debt from the external sources. In external sources, we have three major external sources where the government gets debt. We have multilateral lenders. These are the World Bank, the IMF, the African Development Bank. We have bilateral lenders. These are the countries like you have heard of the Chinese debt. Yeah. Debt from China, debt from UK, debt from Netherlands, debt from Japan, France. And then we have what we call commercial debt. You have heard of the famous Eurobonds. Yeah, they're in that category. So for commercial debt, we get it from two main sources. That is Eurobonds and syndicated loans. For syndicated loans, these are loans that two or more banks come together to lend to the government. A good example, let's say, for example, let me use a domestic case. The government wants around 100 billion. And so Equity, KCB, and Cooperative Bank comes together to lend to the government because one bank cannot be able to afford that money. Yeah, so those are the major sources that government gets debt. And of late, we've been having a very big issue with is the debt good? Or is the government borrowing and all that? So for a layman, it's kind of not easy to get that information. And I try to break it down in such a way that at least they can be able to get it. Typically, government borrows to supplement taxes. So in our case as a country, the national government has a very big budget. Like in the last financial year, it was around 3.4 trillion. And the government was only able to raise around 2.12 trillion. So that means that around 1.3 trillion, we had to get it in form of debt. And the reason why debt has been a very big issue, especially within the last 10 years or so, is because our budget has grown significantly, but our revenues have not matched the growth in our budget. So we have to borrow more in order to actualize our budget. And if you look at the current situation, around 2000 or thereabout, the debt structure is it has changed significantly compared to what we have right now. Because then we used to have what we call concessional loans. Concessional loans are very cheap. And most concessional loans we get from World Bank, IMF and all that, and African Development Bank, and also multilateral, bilateral lenders like Japan and all that. But the government of late has accrued too much commercial debt. That is the Eurobonds and syndicated loans, which has put a lot of pressure on the government or on government sources to repay that debt, hence the debt situation. And which also affects Kenyans in a way because the government has to raise revenue through taxes to service that debt.
Do you understand? For example, if you are having a household, and you decide that I want to redo the front yard, and that will need more money. As a person, you can say, all right, I think the front yard can wait. So when you see the expenditure ballooning and becoming big, is it a necessity or the government is trying to be reckless?
I'll say the government is reckless because the way the government does budget has a lot of similarities with the way an individual or a household does a budget.
Yeah.
And you cannot live beyond your means. And because as a household, when you borrow, maybe to buy a car, or maybe you borrow maybe to do a mortgage, you have to repay that loan afterwards, maybe after a few months, maybe after a year, depending on the structure of the loan. And when you borrow too much as a household, you'll have a problem paying it. So it's advised that you as an individual or a household borrow up to certain amount that you're able to pay without stressing your finances. That is the same case with the government, but now the challenge that we have been having as an economy is that the government has borrowed a lot, especially commercial debt, which is very, very expensive.
What is commercial debt?
Commercial debt, as I had earlier indicated, is that the Eurobonds and the syndicated loans. They come with the very high interest rates because it's like, in simple terms, it's like borrowing from a Shylock.
But I don't know whether other people understand this thing. Syndicated. What is a syndicated loan? I think those are some of the things that us Kenyans don't get very clearly.
Okay.
For example, can you break down what a Eurobond is?
Okay.
And what is a syndicated loan? I understand that the government can get KCB and Barclays Bank, which is now ABSA, and can get all these other banks equity, and then they borrow to the government. I understand that, and then the government pays with interest. I understand that, but what exactly is a Eurobond? What exactly is a syndicated loan? Yeah.
Yes. For most Kenyans that I've talked to, they think maybe Eurobond is denominated in euros. Euro is a European currency. No, but just a term because the first Eurobond was issued in Europe, so it got the name Eurobond. But in very simple terms, Eurobond is a bond or is a debt that is issued in a currency other than the currency that the country has borrowed in. Or in simple terms, let me use an example. I think it will drive the point home.
Yeah.
Kenya borrows from Japan, from the capital markets in Japan, or from, in Kenya we have Nairobi Stock Exchange or Nairobi Securities Exchange. In Japan, we have Nikkei. It's the equivalent of Nairobi Securities Exchange. So the government of Kenya goes to Nikkei. They want to raise maybe $2 billion Eurobond. In Japan, the currency for Japan is yen.
Yes.
But they get the bond in dollars. So they're able to get $2 billion. So they go and borrow in capital markets in Japan, in Nikkei, or equivalent, NSE in Japan. Now they're able to borrow that money at a relatively high interest rate, because these are foreigners lending to Kenyans. So they want high interest rates.
So a euro bond is just a foreigner lending you money.
Yes, in very simple terms.
And how then does it do it differentiate that from let's say China lending to Kenya?
Okay, for a Eurobond is very different from for China lending to Kenya. That's bilateral. That is country to country.
Country to country.
Yeah, it's called bilateral.
So it's just in the definition.
It's just in the definition.
Yeah.
But they're a bit different because when a country lends to another country, the terms are relatively better because they're able to negotiate country to country. But when you borrow Eurobond, you borrow from investors. Yeah. For country to country, it's very easy to negotiate. But for an investor,
negotiating, when you talk about negotiating, you're negotiating
for the loan.
You are negotiating how we pay it back, or negotiating the interest rate. What exactly is the negotiation?
When you're negotiating a loan between countries, you have to negotiate. It's called a loan. There's a document called a loan indenture, and it's a document that gives the guidelines and all that on everything about the loan, the interest. There's also what we call a grace period. For most loans that Kenya has borrowed with bilateral between country and country, there have been very good loans, and they are tied to a specific project. For example, the SGR, it was tied to a loan that was given by China specifically for that project. So you cannot use that money to do any other thing. But now for Eurobond, you can use it to do any other thing because you just need the money.
Do you have to give them a reason as to why you need the Eurobond loan?
Yes, you can give them a reason. You can tie it to a specific project, but after you've gotten the money, you can repurpose that money because what the investor needs is just the money that they lent it to you plus the interest.
Yeah.
They don't give they don't really give a lot of care on how much you'll use that money as long as you're able to repay them.
You can actually repurpose it to
Exactly.
and then it goes to your pockets.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
there is an analogy that you used before.
Yes.
When we were talking about how bad the country is.
Yes.
And you used the analogy of 100 shillings.
Yes.
Could you please expound on that so that people that don't know so much about economics can get the real situation that the country is in?
Okay. KRA collects money, and as per the PFM Act, in our country we are guided by the Constitution, especially in terms of finances, and the Public Finance Management Act. It gives the government guidelines on how to go about finances and how to disperse funds. According to the PFM Act and also the Constitution, the first call is to pay debt. So what KRA collects, the first thing it must do is pay debt.
That's according to the Constitution.
That's according to the PFM Act.
What is this?
Yeah, these are the PFM Act. There are rules and guidelines guiding government expenditure. Yes. So the first thing, when KRA collects money, the first thing they have to do is pay debt. Then after paying debt, then they can go to recurrent expenditure. That is paying salaries, paying fuel for government vehicles and all that.
Okay.
And then they do development. So there's a structure. That first call, pay debt. Second, do the recurrent expenditure, the salaries, the petrol for cars, the fuel for cars and all that, and all the other expenses that the government, ministries and parastatals do. Then they can do development. So development is number 3.
That is very interesting, because I'm thinking that is that how an individual should work? I mean, if you get money, do you first take your child to school? Do you first buy food, or do you first is this really normal how the government is doing this thing? That first of all you get money and then you pay your debts first. Because do you pay your debts first? I don't pay my debts first.
It depends. It depends with the person. Because for people who have borrowed from banks, you're deducted from the paycheck. So you get your money minus the interest for the loan.
Yeah.
But
So basically, that is how economics should work.
that's how it works.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wouldn't say that's how it should work because maybe let me first demystify the issue with debt, because there's a connotation that debt is bad. Debt is good if you use it for the right purpose, and if you use it for a project that will earn you either income or will earn you revenue. And in our case, Kenya is a developing country, and we have very ambitious
How
development
long
goal.
does a country develop, brother? We are 60 years down the line.
Yes, we are 60.
How long does a country develop?
Kenya, at the moment, in terms of the
Probably
ranking,
you are actually the guy to ask this question. How long does a country develop? You can develop for life.
it depends. For US, it took around 200 years to develop. For China, 30 years. So it depends on the government policies.
It took China how long? 30 years.
Yeah, in economics, one generation is 30 years. That is from when you're born to when you probably at least have your first child. So
That's a generation.
That's a generation. Huh? That's around 30 years. In economics, we take generation is about 30 years. And China, in 1990, China was the same level with Kenya in terms of poverty.
But yes. You're still the one you're explaining this.
Yes.
But you are saying that it took the government of the US or the USA 200 years to develop.
Yes.
It took the Chinese 30 years to develop.
Yes.
It has taken us 60 years.
And we're still not yet developed.
And we are still not yet developed.
Yes.
Anyway, you are going on with the explanation of how bad we are, and you're going to explain it in 100 shillings.
Yes. Let me use last year's financial year figures. We collected around 2.1 trillion. That is KRA collected around 2.1 trillion. And out of that, around 1.1, 1.3 trillion went to service debt. And if you look at the wage bill for the national government and the county government in collectively, it's about 1 to 1.1 trillion. So if KRA collects around 2.1 trillion, around 1.3 goes to debt service, and we need around 1 more trillion for recurrent expenditure, paying salaries and others, parastatals, county governments. So you can see that's around 2.3, 2.4 trillion, just paying debt and salaries. But KRA collects how much? KRA collects around 2.1 trillion. That means that for us to do development expenditure, we have to borrow. That's how bad it is. And the reason why, because Kenya has been having debt since independence, and the reason why right now it's very bad is because something changed within the last 10 years or so. We took in too much commercial debt, which is very expensive, and the bilateral and multilateral debt, which are very cheap, they took a backseat. They're still the majority in terms of share, but they kind of took a backseat. Because if you look at 2000, let me just go within the last 20 years, commercial debt was only 5% of the share of all the government debt. Right now it's 36%. And commercial debt is more or less like borrowing from a Sherlock. It's very expensive. And
this is the one that we take from banks.
Commercial debt, we take from abroad. These are the Eurobonds. Yeah, the Eurobonds, and those are syndicated loans, but not from local banks, from international banks. Yeah, we have syndicated loans from local banks, and also have syndicated loans from international banks.
Why did we go for the expensive?
We go for the expensive because for bilateral loans that is given by China, France, Britain, they're tied to specific projects, and you must use for that specific project.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Same with multilateral loans. For example, Thika Road. We built Thika Road. One of the biggest financials was African Development Bank. It was for Thika Road only. You cannot divert that money and use it for other purpose. But now, when you get Eurobond and syndicated loans, they don't really follow up. The investors who give you money, they don't really follow up to see what you do, as long as you pay them.
Yeah. As long as you pay them back.
Yeah. And also, loans from the multilateral lenders and bilateral lenders, the IMF, World Bank, and China and all that, they come with conditions. They come with very strict conditions. So the government is not able to maybe use that money to do other things because the national government has also been using money to do recurrent expenditure. That is borrowing money to pay salaries. which is very dangerous.
which is
Yeah.
which is very dangerous. So they were going for these other expensive loans because they were not tied to a project, and they can use it wherever they want, however they want, and things like that,
and get away with it.
So that is how bad. So the government, so for 100 shillings, the government pays what and what and what.
Yeah, for every 100 bob that KRA collects, around 75 shillings go to pay debt. Yeah. So you're left with 25 bob per every 100 shillings, and that one is not even enough to pay salaries.
So then what happens?
They have to borrow to pay salaries and to do development.
I don't understand. So the county government falls under what?
The county government, the county government, it's a government on its own, but it's
But
limited in terms of scope.
ultimately, all the money has to come from the national government. So when you talk about 100 Kenya shillings, that 75 goes into paying loans. Whether the Shiloh or the ones specifically for projects, and then we have 25 shillings remaining. The 25 shillings remaining has to go into development and has to go into recurrent expenditure.
Yes.
And the recurrent expenditure is, so I perhaps what I want to understand is how the county government comes into this. The county government is within the 25.
The county government is also within the 25.
So the money that is supposed to be used by the government nationally, the money that is supposed to be used. Okay, so another thing that I want you to clarify. When we go to the county government gets money from the national government. Then once they have gotten whatever the amount it is, whether it is 3 billion, they go and figure out how to use it. Do you know if the county government also has debt?
Yes.
Where do they get their debt from?
For county government, they have been having issues with getting money from the national government because they get money quarterly or monthly, depending on how liquid the treasury is. They get money from the national treasury. So after every quarter, the treasury releases, for example, the last financial year, the county government was supposed to receive around 7 billion. That is, if you include the equitable funds and plus all the extra funds that the counties which are marginalized get. That's around 7 billion. But the county government have not been able to get all the money because we have been having issues with the national treasury. Remember, around March, government had an issue with paying salaries. So even county governments, if you have been following, you'll find that governors have been raising this issue. You're not getting money from the national government. So we are not able to pay salaries and we are not able to do development. And because salaries are very important, people cannot stay for long without getting salaries.
Yeah.
So what the county governments have been doing, they've been doing overdrafts from their banks to pay salaries. So they negotiate with the local banks, if maybe it's KCB, it's Equity, it's Coop Bank. So the employees are able to get salaries. And when the money comes from the exchequer or from the national government, then they can be able to give the bank.
So the national government is in a borrowing spree, and the siblings, the children are also borrowing.
Yeah.
So we have the national government borrowing and the county government borrowing. So the money sent to the county government, how is it categorized? The government categorizes it as, is it recurrent expenditure or is it development money?
No. Okay, let me give you the context first before I answer the question.
Yeah.
We have Vision 2030.
Mm-hmm.
So Vision 2030 is actualized in 5 years medium development plans or medium-term plans. So remember, with the onset of the new constitution, the 2010 constitution, now we have 2 levels of government, national and county. And Vision 2030 also encompasses both development in the national level and also at the county level.
Mm.
So Vision 2030 is actualized at the national level. We have medium-term plans.
Yes.
You remember Big Four agenda?
Mm.
Yeah, that was MTP2.
Mm.
The first MTP was between 2008 and 2012 under the coalition government, and mostly the target was GDP growth. Remember, we had just come from the post-election violence, so the economy had received quite a beating. So the major aim of the MTP, the first MTP, was to revive the economy. Then came the MTP2, and it came 2013. now after it ushered in the new constitution. Because the new constitution started being implemented after the start of the Uhuru regime, that is from 2013 onwards. So we had MTP2. So the MTP2, the major goal of the MTP2 was mostly devolution, because from 2013, that is when we started having devolved units. So the major aim was to develop the devolved units. Then it went from 2013 to 2017. So in 2018 to 2022, which is last year, we have been having the so-called Big Four agenda by Uhuru with the 4 key pillars. So that was the goal. And at the county level, we also have something similar. They are called County Integrated Development Plans. They're also 5-year, and they go with the MTP. So at the national level, we have medium-term plans. At the county level, we have County Integrated Development Plans. So every county must have one. Yeah, they have one. So in that County Integrated Development Plan, they are supposed to have projects and that align with Vision 2030, but projects that are specific to county. For example, in a county that is marginalized, you expect they have projects majorly dealing with education, healthcare, and all that. And these projects, the county, I say they have a leeway to do the budget, but there are some things that they have to align with the specific rules. For example, like healthcare is devolved, agriculture is devolved to the county government. And there's a specific limit, that there's a specific threshold that the county governments are supposed to invest in healthcare and agriculture. For example, Kenya is also a signatory to international development plans. We are signatories to SDGs 2030 and also AU Agenda 2063. So for AU Agenda 2063, we are supposed to invest at least 15% of the budget on health, 10% of the budget on agriculture. So national level, that should be the case. 10% of the budget should go to agriculture, 15% of the budget should go to health. Same case at the county level. So the county level are also supposed to follow that trend. Also, according to PFM Act, the Public Finance Management Act, and the County Government Act, that also controls the county's expenditure, at least 30% should go to development expenditure. Yeah. So, and recurrent expenditure, there's not supposed to surpass a certain threshold. So those are the rules and regulations and acts that the national government and also the county government are supposed to follow. But now the challenge we have been having, because debt is also at the national level, at the county level, but at the county level, it's just within the local banks. And it's majorly focused on paying recurrent expenditure, that is salaries. Yeah. Because of delay.
Do we have how bad is it? Because when we talk about the national debt, everybody says it is bad.
Yeah.
You agree that it is bad. When you go to because essentially, I don't know, my thinking is that as a county government, you are supposed to be given money.
Yes.
And you use that money.
Yes.
But then when you go and start borrowing, what does that do to the money that you're apportioned?
That means that if the county, let's say, for example, let me use an example to drive the point home. Let's say we have county A. Now, let me not name counties. Let me have county
A.
Yeah. They're supposed to receive maybe 5 billion from the national government in this financial year. And the money is disbursed in 4 tranches or 4 times, like every quarter. After every 3 months, the government releases money. So if you are supposed to receive maybe 4 billion, you'll receive 1 billion after 3 months, 1 billion after 3 months, 1 billion after 3 months. And the last quarter, you receive 1 billion, so total is 4 billion. Now, if you have not yet received money in the first quarter and you have salaries to pay, you have other expenditures, you have development expenditures, you have people who did service to the counties, they want money for their services. So if you have not yet received, what do you prioritize? You prioritize salaries of your workers first. Because for development expenditure, we can store the projects for the time being. But salaries have to be paid, otherwise the employees will strike. So for county government, what they've been doing, they've been getting overdrafts from bank. Counties, they can easily get overdraft from banks because banks knows that county governments can easily get money from the national government. Even if it will delay, it will come.
Yeah.
So they get overdrafts at an interest.
And you can only get an overdraft, you can only get a loan from the bank that receives your money.
Yes.
You cannot get from equity.
You can only
if your
yeah.
money goes to KCB.
Yeah, if you get money, goes the government channels money from the national to the county government through a specific bank, let's say KCB or Equity, and you'll find that bank is the one that county government mostly uses in its transaction.
Yeah.
So the bank is able to do an overdraft or lend to county government to pay salaries in advance, because they know that when the government issues money, it will come through that bank. So they're able to deduct after the money has come. But now the challenge is that overdraft comes with interest.
That is the question I'm asking.
Yes.
Because then if the government is supposed to be giving you, let's say, 3 billion
Yes.
In a year, and I imagine that you make a plan of how to use this 3 billion, and you have allocated this 3 billion to the shilling.
Yes.
So then when this money delays, and you start going to our local Shylocks, our local banks and borrowing the money, you're going to fall short.
Yes.
Correct? And how do you think the county government mitigate this? For example, you are at the end of the day you end up with 2.7 billion instead of 3 billion.
Yes.
This 300 million? What happens to it? Because I am thinking that there is accountability. You should be able to do what you said you're supposed to do with the money. And I imagine at the county level, there can be something that's worth 100 million. There is something that you want to do that is only worth 100 million.
Yes.
And when you take 300 million and you're paying back interest with it, what happens to the projects that you're supposed to do with the 300 million?
Exactly. Now, the biggest challenge at county level, because salaries have been paid from even borrowing from the banks when the government delays. But now what suffers is the projects. Because if you see at the county level, there's a lot of delayed projects. Because the money the interest that you will be charged by the bank giving you an advance, that is money is eating into the project's money or the development money. And that one affects the budget implementation, because there are specific frameworks within the county government to guide on how county government is supposed to spend that money and not get out of, not wiggle. But now they have to wiggle if they want to survive, because when you have to take an advance to pay salaries, even for 6 months continuously, that means that the interest that the bank will charge, because advance, actually when you get an advance, the interest rates are very high. So that means that if you have planned maybe to do 4 development projects, you will be able to do 2. So the 2 that you didn't, they are carried over to the next financial year. So you see, when you do carryovers, there are very many projects that have stalled, or they have not yet started because of that kind of thing. Because the national government has delayed giving money to counties, and that is the reason you saw government bringing a fuse, and they threatened, they gave some threats, because they were not able to meet their obligations, especially development obligations. And county government, especially the politicians, the governors, they gave promises to people, and they want to actualize, otherwise they'll be thrown out. Yeah, so that is the challenge with the county government. Another challenge that I'll say with the exists in the county government level is we also been having an issue with wastage. Yeah, because the budget that is passed is not really the one that is actualized, because you will find that maybe there's a cap, as I had Harley indicated, on the salaries that you're supposed to pay. You're not supposed to pay this amount of money to salaries or this share, but sometimes it surpasses it. That's why we've been having issues with. You remember, especially the first devolved government, the MCAs were they were globetrotting everywhere, and mixing out or exhausting the recurrent budget, even 6 months before the financial year has ended. So the county government has to borrow, which was unplanned in the budget. Yeah. So fiscal responsibility is not only at the national government, it's also at the county government level. Yeah. Yeah. Or mismanagement of finances.
I don't understand the county government so much. It's because there are also so many things that if you go to the village area, there are things that were devolved. There are ministries that were devolved. I think the ECD was devolved.
ECD, yeah.
And then agriculture was devolved.
Yes, and health.
And health were also devolved. But if you go to the county, you realize that the people don't know that these things were actually devolved.
Exactly.
And then and sometimes I feel like the devolution was a good thing, but I also think that it came up with a lot of problems. But anyway, let's go back to the county government and the debt that we are having and how bad the situation of the country is. A lot of people claim that Kibaki did well by taking care of our general economical health. And I'm not sure about Moi because, by the way, do you know if there were, you could track what used to happen with the Moi government? Is it anywhere it can be tracked? I remember there are so many things that were happening, good things during the Moi regime. Moi regime is known for bad things, like people vanishing in the dead of the night. But when we look at the economy, I don't know. So perhaps what I wanted us to compare is that we have got 3, 4, is it the Moi government, which was for 24 years. Then we have the Kibaki government, 10 years. And then we have Uhuru government that was 10 years. And then we have started, with Ruto government, which is very interesting and very confusing. But do you have an idea of how Moi used to run his government? Do you have an idea of how Kibaki used to run his government? Do you have an idea of how? Can you compare these 3 governments? I think we are going to come back to Ruto, and that is how we are going to finish this conversation because of the new financial bill that is introducing. But then, can you try and compare the 3 governments that before the Ruto government?
Okay, maybe if I may, let me maybe start from the Kenyatta government. So that
Kenyatta government. You want to start all that far? It's fine. Okay. Let's do that.
Okay. When Kenya got independence, our economy was very small, and we were a developing country. And for in the international financial sphere, for a developing country, it's very easy to get development aid. So Kenya received a lot of development aid in education, in health, and in very many spheres of the economy. Because we were a very small economy, we were a very poor economy. And this continued also into the Moi's government, because the economy was also very poor. In terms of the GDP, majority of the people were poor. And there's something that happened in late 80s and 90s. And the global economy didn't do well that time. Remember, there was 1997, there was the Asian financial crisis, and in the 80s, there was the oil crisis. And as a result, the Kenyan economy really suffered. And the IMF and the World Bank, they called the Bretton Woods institutions, they instituted what we call the conditionalities. And these conditionalities, and they really hurt the Kenyan economy. So the Kenyan economy, I'll say it was doing quite well, though we were poor, from independence up to late 80s, around 1988 there.
1988, that is Moi's in government for about 5 years.
Yeah, around 4 years or thereabout. And what happened is the IMF conditionalities made the economy much worse off. And what happened is these conditionalities that came about, it was not only in Kenya, it also in South America and in Asian economies. And it made those economies worse because the policies that were subscribed by the Bretton Woods institutions, they didn't help the economy, they made it worse. I remember in the 1990s, people were getting from campus to job direct. But now, that is when we started having universities, people paying to join the university. Because initially universities, remember our parents used to get boom and all that. They used to really enjoy. University was more or less like free, and you used to get paid.
They have help now.
Yeah, they have help now. But then it was a grant.
It was a grant. Yeah, yeah. That is the exact. That is the way to say that. It was a grant. It was not meant to be paid back.
Exactly. And we changed. Now people started paying to go to universities, and they go to the help now came about, and the government was told to downsize. One of the conditionalities was downsizing the public sector. So very many people got laid off, and they were given maybe the golden handshake, and that is when the issue of high unemployment rate started, because the economy was doing bad, private sector was doing well. So the situation continued up to 2002 when we had the new government.
The Kibaki government.
Now the coalition government started under Kibaki. And things really changed because initially during the Moi and Kenyatta regime, the IMF and World Bank used to have a lot of say on how our economy is run. But now, when Kibaki came, he really changed even the mindset. Because I remember the first budget that we did, we were able to fund majority of it. Because during Kibaki's time, we used to fund around 96% of our budget. We never used to borrow that much. And the reason why the economy grew very fast and the coalition or the NAC government is because the policies that were initiated after the new government came into power, they are very pro-poor policies. So the first thing that did, the government really stopped borrowing from banks, local banks. So what do banks do? They need to get profit. They started hogging loans to people. And in an economy, when you want to develop an economy, the SMEs, the mama mbogas, they need to get loans to develop their business. So people were able to get loans. It was very easy to get loan. Sometimes
so what Kibaki says, okay,
yes,
I don't want to take the loan that is supposed to be given to my mamboga, that is supposed to be given to the people, working in the metal at the industrial area.
Yes.
So I'm going to let this go, and then the banks will have no otherwise but
lend to people.
To lend to people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And in economy, that's a very good thing because that means when you lend to people, business grow. They're able to get loan to expand the business and all that. So the economy grows organically and it goes very fast. Because right now, even people who's salaried, it's very difficult to get a loan. Because salaried people are the easiest because the bank can deduct from the source from the paycheck. But now even people who are getting salaries is very difficult because the banks they're very strict on getting loans. Why? Because they're lending almost all their money to the government. So the government is competing with the kina mama mbogas for the loans from the local banks, and that is the reason why.
And in any case,
yes,
it is easier to get your money back from the government than it is easier to get it from.
Exactly. That's why banks prefer to lend to the government than to lend to mama mbogas and all that because they know for the government they don't need to follow the government, leave alone and all that. The government will pay. And during the Kibaki's regime, and they also initiated the tender process, given specifically to youth and marginalized people. So we'll find most young people, they came out together, maybe form groups, and they're able to supply things to government, stationaries and all that, and they were paid in time. I remember that time, just an LPO could get you a loan. You get an LPO from the government to supply maybe electronics. You go to bank, they give you a loan. You buy those things, you supply, you're paid promptly. So you're able to expand your business if you're a tenderpreneur, a genuine one in that case. And yes, sir.
A genuine one in that case.
Yeah. And that is how the economy grew. And that is when our middle class started bulging. That is why you found young people buying cars, doing mortgage and all that. And after the Kibaki and Raila regime, or the coalition government finished its tenure, then we had now the new government under Uhuru and Mr. Ruto. Now, the policy on how the economy or the structure of how economy runs really changed because they were so much focused on doing so much within a little time. So they borrowed a lot. They really, really borrowed because from independence up to KB.
What was the hurry of doing these things?
I think they wanted to do like 1,000 things at a go. And we didn't have the money, so they had to borrow a lot. Because from independence up to Kibaki time, we had a debt of around 1.6, 1.7 trillion.
During the Kibaki?
Since Kenyatta Senior up to when Kibaki finished, we had a debt of around 1.7 trillion national debt. Right now it's 9.4.
What?
Yeah, trillion. Yes. So that means that during that period, we have borrowed around 7.8.
During for the last 13 years.
Since the Kibaki, from the Uhuru regime,
which is 2013.
2013 up to now, we have borrowed around 7.8, 7.9 trillion or thereabout.
We have borrowed 5 times.
Yeah, 5 times within 10 years, compared to 50 years. You can see the magnitude, and even the borrowing within that period. You're supposed to borrow. Even you borrow money maybe to expand your business, which is good because you get more profit and you're able to service the loan and you're able to grow your wealth. But now, most of the borrowing was channeled to what we call in economics white elephant projects. Yes. So white elephant projects, they are projects that cost a lot of money, but they don't really give a lot of benefit to the economy. Yeah.
Like which ones?
I'll say SGR.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the document, SGR was mainly done to do cargo, not transport. Transport was a by the way. To transport people was a by the way, because cargo transport gets more money. But now the challenge was it could have costed around 50 billion, between 30 to 50 billion, to build an SGR along the existing railway, because we already have an existing railway from Nairobi to Mombasa, the old one. Just change from that to meter gauge railway, that is the SGR. Now SGR has costed around 750 billion, and just building the new railway on the old one and maybe revamping the bridges and also the structures could have costed around 50 billion. But now we went for a brand new one and a new railway line, which costed us 750 billion. You can see the difference. So that's around 700 billion wasted. And this is money that we borrowed and we have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see that that is not a very good deal for the people of Kenya, because they are the ones who will pay through taxes. And another thing that happened is that some of the projects, they were priced very, very highly. You find that the original price is even 6-7 times. And that is how Kenya lost a lot of money. And that is the money that we have to pay. So if your project is priced several times its real value and the government paid, I don't know who received the money, then that means that it's us, the taxpayers, who have to pay that debt through taxes. So they borrowed a lot, and they were very reckless in terms of the budgeting. And we reached a point where we are currently having very big issues with debt service, because even the new regime has continued with the trend.
With the trend of borrowing and borrowing.
Yeah, of the previous regime. Yeah.
There is the question now of the financial bill that is here with us.
Yes.
Why is it such a bad? I don't know why. Whenever the government is having something that we hear from politicians, especially the opposition, and what the opposition usually do is to find ways of making the government look bad. I believe that is politics, but then sometimes the noise from the political landscape is very loud, that you really can't know what is really going on. If you listen to the opposition and many people, they are claiming that the financial bill is the devil itself, and is going to make Kenya really, really bad. On the other side, if you listen to Ruto speaking, and if you listen to people that people like Mr. Ndi, they are claiming that this is going to save the government. So, do you think what is your opinion about the new bill? Is it bad? Is it good?
Okay, before I give my opinion,
Yeah,
I'll advise Kenyans, before you take advice on someone, just take your time and read.
but sometimes we just read and we don't understand what is going on.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. But if you're able to read it, it's good to read. At least you will be informed, and you're able to make a decision from an informed point of view. What I'll say that the finance bill, it has good things and bad things, but bad things transcend good things. I'll say like it has 20% good things, 80% bad things for the economy or for the common mwananchi.
Okay.
Because there are some clauses within the bill that will help mwananchi, like the lowering the price of LPG, removing VAT from exports, which will make our exports cheaper, so we're able to export more. But at the same time, there are taxes within or that have been proposed that will make life harder for the common mwananchi. For example, the 16% tax on insurance. So if you maybe, God forbid, got in an accident and you're paid money by your insurance, so government will get 16% of that. And
but I don't understand that, because why is when you bet and you receive 30,000 from a betting company, the government takes tax out of that.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, it's money that you've gotten. But for example, you are I don't know how insurance. There is a particular way insurance works. So if for example, life insurance, so the government is going to tax that if you're paid.
Yes.
That's interesting.
For example, if somebody is involved in an accident and maybe your car gets damaged and maybe you're paid maybe 1 million, maybe to replace your car, or you're paid 1 million by your insurer, so 16% will go to tax.
But I don't understand. That is really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Because if you have a car and the government, the insurance company actually pays you to go and make the car or to get a new car. So if for example, your car is written off and you're given, they say that, okay, for us to make this bumper, for us to make these tires, or for us to do this, it's going to cost around 800,000 to do these things on the car. So when the government takes 16% of that 800,000
doesn't make sense.
that you're given, then you can't make that car.
Yeah, that means you have to top up with 16% from your pocket. You see, it doesn't make any sense. And that is one of the contentious issues that people have with the finance bill. Then the other one is, majority of the young people, they are content creators. And one of the proposals is to do a 16% tax on content, money gotten from content creators, and any deals. Most content creators, they get deals maybe with a company, maybe to supply beauty products and all that. Now that one will also be taxed.
I think I know how that is going to work, and how it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you are having a YouTube channel like this one, it means that when Google is paying you the money, then they have to remit 16% of that. And TikTok.
Yes, and TikTok and all the social media platforms.
And Facebook. And every one of them. Yes. But then if I am doing social media for somebody and they give me money for doing that, then you just pay your normal tax. Okay. Yes. And what are other crazy things about this bill?
For another thing is for beauty products, the human hair, the eyelashes, and all that. Most of the products that are in the beauty industry, they will also be subjected to 5% tax.
Yeah. When you're selling them.
Yeah, when you're buying them, when you're buying them and there's a 5% tax, that means the price will increase by 5%.
But then
you will pass that cost to the final user, so the buyer. You'll find,
they were not taxing these things before.
They were not taxing these things before.
But when you go to the supermarket, anything that you buy from the supermarket, there's a tax.
Yeah, there's a VAT attached to it.
So what is this one? This is a specific one.
The challenge with the human hair and all that, they were not taxed before. So you just paid the tax for importing them.
For importing them?
Yeah, because we get them from other countries. And now you have to pay tax on them. Yes.
So I think we are going to the tail end of this conversation. What I would love you to explain is that if you were Ruto, what would you do now? If you are the government, what would you do now to make sure that, because surely we need a turnaround.
Yes, we need a turnaround.
Things have to be better. So how do you think that we should be able to what should we do from now?
Okay. What we should do as Ruto, the first thing I'll do, because all these challenges emanate from the budget or the budget making process. The first thing, Kenya is an agricultural economy. Agriculture employs nearly 2/3 of the population, of the working age population. But if you look at the budget, agriculture is not allocated the amount of money that it should get, because agriculture has the highest multiply effect. What I mean by multiply effect, if you really want to grow an economy, we must focus our investments on agriculture, on increasing productivity in agriculture. Why am I saying that? Because this is data from KNBS. An average Kenyan, especially in cities, spends 50% of his or her income on food alone. Just food.
50%?
50 on food alone. If we are able to make food very cheap, that amount can go up to around 15%. Because in developed countries, people spend around 10% of their income on food. In Kenya, we spend 50%. That's a sign of poverty. So if we're able to make food very cheap, then that person is able to use that amount of money that is able to save from food being lower to do other things, maybe to take his or her kids to better schools and all that. And food is a very big issue. even in our current account, we have a very big current account deficit, and it's majorly driven by two things: food imports and fuel imports. For fuel, it's a bit tricky because fuel prices had gone up all over the world. It is a global issue, not a Kenyan issue. But for food, we can produce locally. It's not rocket science. It's something that we can produce locally and not import. Because initially we never used to import a lot of food, but nowadays we import a lot of food. Because our agriculture...
That dam that we were supposed to do was for irrigation.
Yeah.
What was it for? The one whose money went into thin air.
Yeah, it was supposed to be for irrigation. And also another project that I think Ruto should revive is Galana Kulalu. Yeah, that was a very good idea. And the government had initiated to irrigate 1 million acres of land. Half of it maize alone, and around 200,000 acres on sugar or sugarcane. You'll find that the three foods that we really import: maize, sugar, wheat, and edible oils. That's cooking oil. Those are the three biggest things that we import. Those are the things we can produce locally with better management. So Galana Kulalu, if it was actualized, you wouldn't be importing maize and sugar. And you know, we have nowadays, actually, especially right now, the sugar prices has gone up. It's through the roof. Same case with unga. So if we're able to meet local demand by producing at Galana Kulalu, then the price of unga will be very cheap. And you know, Kenyans, unga is our staple food.
Yeah.
So that will make lives better off, and also sugar. So that is something that government can do, because it's not something that it can cost a lot of money. Because the average amount of money that the government gave to Galana Kulalu was around 3.5 billion. Around 3.5 billion per year. So that's not, for a government that does a very big budget, that's not a large amount of money. Then the other thing, we have been having a very big issue with unemployment as a country, especially among young people. How can we economically engage them? Also through agriculture. Do you know the average age of a farmer in Kenya is 60 years? That's our parent. And they are not able to grasp the new developments in agriculture. So to attract more youths into agriculture, we need to create incentives for them to go to agriculture. Because most young people don't do agriculture. They say it's a poor man's business. And that is where...
But I also think that our generation is just saying, shit, this thing, I have to wait for the rain, and it's not making sense
exactly
for us to wait for the rain.
And that's the reason why we have to initiate climate-smart agricultural policies. And we also have to fund those initiatives. We don't need to depend on rain, because rain-fed agriculture, our rainfalls have been very erratic in the recent past, but we can irrigate lands using water from dams. And that is the reason why dams are very important. And that's the reason why governments, even previous governments, have been having very big plans on building mega dams to do agriculture through irrigation, so that at least the country is able to have a stable supply of food. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Josphat. That was a very good conversation. My producer is looking at me and saying maybe we should have this conversation coming to an end. So thank you very much, Mr. Josphat. Thank you very much, viewers, for listening in and viewing this episode. It's an episode about money. It's an episode about agriculture, about food, about hunger, and about the situation that is taking care of that is really affecting us here in the country. One of the things that I would like to say is that I would ask you to subscribe to this channel, Dialogues with Jakero. When you subscribe to this channel, you can always be notified when another one is up. And when you subscribe to it, Google is going to be told that, people like this thing. One of the things that you could also do is to comment, give us your feedback. Josphat has talked about the situation in this country. It would be lovely if we could hear what you have to say about this. Apart from subscribing, you can also hit on that notification bell so that whenever we have got a video out, you can always tune in and listen to the podcast or the channel. So thank you very much. Until another episode. Thanks for now.